I'm sure you've heard me talk about 26shirts.com before, but just in case you haven't, let me fill you in. At 26 Shirts, they sell different limited edition sports-themed t-shirts every 2 weeks. After a shirt's prospective 2-week run is over, the design is retired and never sold again. They are operating out of Buffalo and now also offer options in Chicago. For every shirt sold, $8 is donated to a family in need. Not to a major charity or foundation, but to an actual family or individual in need. To show our support here at Chasing Cinema, when you buy a shirt, we will automatically put you into a drawing to win the next shirt free. That's right. You buy a shirt, $8 goes to help a family or individual in need, and you get a shot to win the next shirt absolutely free from Chasing Cinema. So go to www.26shirts.com and buy a unique Buffalo Sports Design t-shirt, help a great cause, and also get entered to win the next shirt absolutely free. Again, that's 26shirts.com, because you have the ability to help a complete stranger just because it's the right thing to do. www.26shirts.com. Help someone now. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official podcast. I have Louie cracking up over here. I am your host, Jacob Tiranno, and I know that we've been away the past couple of weeks. I was out of town. There was a lot of things coming up, but finally, Louie and I have reunited. We're recording this. The past 2 weeks I've recorded live at AMC. But now we are here, we are live, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so each week an episode is downloaded automatically to your iTunes page. Or if you're not so much of an iTunes person, please feel free to go to youtube.com/chasingcinema and click subscribe, where you can watch our daily movie news updates, our movie reviews, and our podcast that is uploaded each week. Again, thank you for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Tiranno, and I'm joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louie Coruzzolo.
And today we're going to be catching up. I mean, me and Louie haven't really seen each other or talked to each other in a while, so we're going to see what's going on, and then we're going to conclude this week's episode by reviewing American Ultra, a film that just came out this past week. I'll talk a little bit about Hitman Agent 47, though I did not see that movie, so I can't talk much about it. I only know what James had said. So let's get into it. Louie, how have you been? I think it's been the 4 weeks, maybe a month or so since the Chasing Cinema universe has heard from you. How are you doing, sir?
It's been a while. I've been hanging in there, to say the least. Just got done with summer school, so I had this nice week off before I go back again. But just trying to relax, enjoy the last of August. You know, it's the Sundays of summer, if you will, before we get back into the fall weather. But
which I can't wait, because if there's anything that I hate right now, it's been the weather.
Yeah, see, I think this is perfect weather right now.
You're sick.
I love the heat. Bring me heat. I need the heat.
I temporarily went to Ohio and for a vacation, and I loved it because it was just the nicest weather. It was weird though, because they were raining every day until we got out there, and there was actually 4 consecutive days. It was the first 4 days consecutively where they had no rain while we were there. So I mean, it was nice, but it was cool. Not really humid at all. It was very enjoyable. And then I came back here, and I get in my car and it's 118 degrees. It's it's a problem. So I don't know what's perfect for you, but it must be your head getting to you. There's probably been so much that I've seen or wanted to talk about since we last joined. I know me and Louie are going to be talking about The Gift, a movie that came out a few weeks ago. Actually, I believe it came out the same week Mission Impossible came out, the review that Louie wrote for me while I was actually in Ohio. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm actually going to give Louie a play-by-play, and I've done it many times. I think I've done it on this podcast before, but me and Louie like sometimes just to tell each other a play-by-play of a movie by ourselves, because we make it our own. It's funny. So that'll be going on. Yeah, it will be unique. But before that, Louie, has there been anything that you've seen, you've watched, television, stand-up movies that you want to talk about?
There's been actually quite a few. And now let me try to remember all that I have watched in the past Well, first off, I finished True Detective season 2.
Yes, like most people.
Like most people, and like
and
most
from
people.
what I've been hearing, there's been a disappointing season finale. So as far as the other episode, I know we talked briefly about it. I do know that most people were really disappointed with the season finale. Where do you lie in that debate?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because as good as season 1 was for me, I was still a little disappointed in their season finale as well. I think one thing that this show has a problem with is wrapping it up. It like
you didn't like season 1's season finale as well.
Yeah, like it was better than this season's finale, but at the same time, I had a lot of problems with it.
Okay,
because like I don't want to say Nick tries to wrap everything nicely in a bow, because he really doesn't. But at the same time, he tries to. He goes about doing. It's hard to explain because you haven't seen either season finales. But like he does in a way where it does feel like it's wrapped up in a bow.
Okay,
and like it doesn't
too neatly.
Yeah, it doesn't mesh with the overall tone and the vibe from the season. Like it takes me aback. It takes me out of experience. Like, oh, this doesn't feel like the previous 6 episodes. What's going on? And the same thing happened again in this season. I liked season 2 more than most people. I didn't think it is as bad as most people are making out. But at the same time, it was a step down from season 1, and there was definitely a lot of problems going on.
It's the Godfather 3 of True Detective.
No, not even, because even you say Godfather 3.
Godfather 3 is a great... Dude, Godfather 3, like, people give a lot of crap to that movie, but it's just because it's compared to one of the two greatest films of all time.
It's hard, yeah. If you compare it to those two, like, of course you're going to say that one is not good.
But it's a solid flick on its own.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Let's break it down a little bit.
Yes.
We have Colin Farrell, Vince Vaughn, and Rachel McAdams.
Yes.
Not replacing, but taking over for Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, two of the best male working actors right now.
Absolutely.
Arguably Matthew McConaughey is literally one of the best. Vince Vaughn, we've seen act well, just not really lately. Colin Farrell has always done good stuff. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where Colin Farrell really blew me out of the water. I might be spacing it right now. But Rachel McAdams is also nice to watch. I wouldn't expect her in something like this. A little bit out there for her. How are the performances? Because we all know that when most people talk about True Detective, we're talking about performances.
Yes, absolutely. The performances never reached the heights of Harrelson or McConaughey. But Colin Farrell, I thought, did a terrific job with his character. He was my favorite character in this season, and the only one that I was invested into. And I think that's another big issue I had with season 2 was right off the bat, you are hooked on Matthew McConaughey. You love his character. You love what he has to say. You want to follow everything he does.
Yes.
And even with Woody Harrelson, you love him because he's the guy that would stand up to Matthew McConaughey's character and say, "Okay, cut the nonsense, man. You're losing me here. What's going on?" And you appreciated his honesty, and they worked great together in season. Yeah, go ahead.
And I have some great news. I have actually started True Detective season 1,
which is fantastic.
A year and 2 months after Louie originally asked me to start.
Begged you.
And you're right. And I'm not far into the season yet. So I'll hopefully wrap it up by the time we do next week's podcast or the following, because next week is the beginning of school and all that fun stuff. But you're right. I really enjoy their dynamic. And you have two great actors like that sitting in a car talking. You know you're going to get fireworks. So that's my question, is just like how... I mean, immediately you have something that explosive. How is it when we have Vince Vaughn and
then there we go. And that's the problem, because Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson kind of were dependent on one another to make it work. These characters are designed in such a way that they're lone wolves. They do everything by themselves. They're closed off. They work better alone, and that's fine when you're crafting a character that's meant to do that. But in the grand schemes of things, it hurts the interactions when they have to be working together, which inevitably happens. So the chemistry is kind of off for whatever reason. It's not as strong as the other, but Colin Farrell still does a great job with his character. I thought he was fantastic throughout the series. I really enjoyed Rachel McAdams. It probably wasn't her best performance, but it was another different approach she's taken.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see her playing detectives too much at all, even. So that was nice. That was a nice turn of pace, and I thought she did really some great work, some great episodes. Vince Vaughn, love the guy. There was episodes where he was really good, and there was episodes where he was not so good. But I blame that more on the dialogue and the character arc more than Vince Vaughn's performance. Like, he has definitely potential to get into some meaty, themes and topics, and sometimes it really comes off, and sometimes it doesn't come off at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that kind of explains this theory. When we're doing a detective noir in California about land, property, and corruption, the plot was so convoluted. And I'm not saying it was difficult to understand. Sure, there's a lot of moving aspects and moving pieces and different characters you get introduced to, like a mile a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes it, I guess, a little, hard to pick up. But, at the same time, we don't need this much complication from this show. If you look at season 1, granted, we might not know who the main killer is, but we know what's going on. We could follow it. Everything adds up perfectly. It makes sense. And there's motive for us to continue the show because we do have an interest about who's killing. Is Matthew McConaughey talking out of his butt? Is there some real logic behind it? And this one, with all the corruption and this guy bought this guy out, this guy bought this guy out, it ties back to Vince Vaughn and this guy and this. There's just so much noise that he probably could have shredded a lot of it and would have made it more direct, more concentrated, and it could have been a better product.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another problem. It was by the end of it, I couldn't care less what happens to the characters.
Yeah, you just needed to finish.
I was done. I was generally concerned for Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. And this one, in the beginning, I was for Colin Farrell and Rachel McAdams and even Vince Vaughn to an extent. But by the season's finale, I was like, okay, I don't care what happens at all. Just get it done. Let me know what was the purpose of this all. And I'm still trying to search for the purpose. Even though the mystery solved and we know why, I don't think it was worth the 8 episodes trying to get, from point A to point B. And it's kind of disappointing, but it was still great. The film, most of the direction was great.
I was going to ask that because Cary Fukunaga really sets a tone in the original season, and I'm 99% sure he didn't return.
No, not at all. And it's sad because definitely season 2 could have used him. And granted, what Cary did in season 1 was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's just amazing the work he did. In season 2, we never got to that master level of craftsmanship behind the camera, but there are some great sequences and scenes that really take you aback and say, wow, I can't believe I'm watching this on TV, Yeah. It's pretty cool. But it never really reaches that level. And that kind of hurts the season 2, but overall there's still the same
wasn't
vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the only one, there was one freeze frame at one of the end of the episode, and it was just so tacky, and it held on for so long, and it just kind of goes out. And it was stuff like little instances like that kind of bugs you, but it doesn't take away from the overall effect of the episode, because that was one of the best episodes of the season. But it was hit and miss.
So do you tune into True Detective season 3?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just because
on no matter what, or on the basis of who they cast?
It's probably more on the basis of who they cast, because what he's done is he's attracted big talent into this, miniseries, and it's exciting for people who love film people who love TV, to get different people, different talent coming in and seeing what they could create. It's very intriguing, and the possibilities are limitless, if you will, because he could get so many different actors in season 3, and he could change the story, because the story from season 2 is vastly different from the story in season 1. I give him that. Like, he's not retreating the same type of material he did in season 1, and I respect him for that, and that helps the season a lot in season 2. And if he does the same type of thing for season 3, where he tries to create new universes, new themes he wants to go about, I'm all for it. I think he's definitely deserved enough of benefit of doubt where, okay, I come back, but hopefully it's better than season 2, more like season 1.
And that is True Detective Season 2, which is available now on HBO Go and HBO Now, I believe. Okay, so I'm not sure if you have anything else to talk about, but I'll give you a break and let you breathe a little bit, and I'm going to talk about a documentary that I watched. So I'm one of those people who rents something on Redbox, never watches it, keeps it for 30 days. Yeah, I know. Most people keep it for a few days. I keep it for 30. I have Netflix, I have Hulu, and I don't really use them very often. And it's a shame. But one night recently, I was just kind of going through Netflix, and I wanted to watch something completely different. I didn't want anything. I wanted something a little bit more real. So I started scrolling through the documentaries, and I remember hearing this movie called The Overnighters. And The Overnighters is a documentary from last year. And very, very interesting. I was kind of blind going in, but it ended up being a really, really great watch. So this movie follows this oil boom in North Dakota. Fracking right now is a really, really big thing. It creates a lot of jobs, well-paying jobs. So when people around the country can't get work in their own hometowns, let alone work that pays 6 figures, as we are told in the beginning of the film, a lot of people started traveling to North Dakota. And, I mean, these waitresses were making a lot of money. North Dakota is just booming right now. So what does everyone do who can't find work in their hometown or is struggling? Is everyone goes out to find work in North Dakota. And this is real. This is documentary. This is all true. And eventually, the jobs are filled. But the people still come. People keep hearing about these jobs, and people are coming, people are determined, people are moving across the country, driving in their car to find work and to take care of their families. Most of them only coming with the shirt on their back, with their vehicle, if they have a vehicle, to start a life. Now, all these jobs are being taken, and these people who are still arriving have nowhere to go. So this documentary, though in the widespread talks about this, is essentially a story of a pastor of a church who decides to take these people in. And it's about the town talking about them, expressing how they feel about them, and essentially wanting them out. They get the nicknames the Overnighters because they stay the overnight at the church. If you have a vehicle, he'll put you in the parking lot and you're allowed to sleep there. In North Dakota, you're allowed to sleep in your vehicle if you've gotten permission. Those who do not or have families are allowed to sleep in the church and in the pews and in different rooms, and they're all shackled up. And it becomes this story of this pastor against the community, because the community, there was a murder in the community. A lot of people are blaming crime and issues to these people that they don't know where they came from. Different colors and different creeds and races, obviously, in this very, very small town in North Dakota. I wish I remember the name of it. I'll look it up. Oh, Williston or Wilston. Not a big town, And it's about these different people's stories. I mean, this guy, this filmmaker named Jesse Moss, went in because, like most things, interesting happens when there's a boom or when there's a big period of change. So he just went there, and I mean, he did majority of everything by himself. He just went there and got to know these people. And that's the majority of the documentary. However, you find out that most of these people, we are introduced to these characters. We see them are, most of them are people we sympathize with. We want to see find work. We want this pastor to help these people and stop the judgmental other people who are saying these people are ruining their town, ruining their home, just to kind of see the light. And you find out that there's a lot of skeletons in the closets of everyone that we meet, or nearly everyone that we meet. And the movie is kind of about exploring those and exploring neighborhood. I mean, the big theme here is loving thy neighbor. And it's a really, really great documentary. I don't want to spoil it, but the conversations that this guy had with these people, I mean, they get very, very open. And some of these stories end, good and happy, and some of them end the complete opposite. And I won't give much away, but it's a really, really good, a great watch. And if it's just something random and off the cuff, but it's a really, really good watch.
And this is on Netflix, you said?
This is on Netflix right now. It's called The Overnighters. The pastor that this film's kind of centered on is on the cover. And yeah, I mean, it's just a really, really great movie. And you can watch the trailer. I don't know what the trailer gives away, though. And honestly, I would recommend watching it. It's a really, really great, interesting movie. And it isn't till, you kind of go throughout the whole entire thing, you realize that there's a lot more behind the veil. And it's a really, really good movie.
Yeah. And it's something that you don't see a lot of. Like, it's out there definitely, but
yeah, in
terms of documentaries or Hollywood films or TV shows, it's definitely not.
Yeah, most documentaries are always tackling something very, very prominent or something that the world's talking about, or the exact opposite, which no one is talking about. Usually, why they make a documentary, and this is something that I didn't know was going on. This is something that I personally cannot really relate to be completely honest. I've never had the issue of not being able to work and having to move my family across country to find work in an oil field or an oil plant or whatever you'd want to call that. But I mean, you open up, you're meeting real people with real issues who are trying to survive. And it's a really kind of interesting story of how they're treated and how they treat some of the people who live in this small town. And, the more and more we get to know them, we learn more about them and who they are and how they act and stuff like that. It's really good because it reveals to you these people a certain way. And then you don't get to really get to know them until later.
Excellent.
Great watch. Anything else from you?
Yeah, I actually did watch the documentary myself. Not as serious as yours, but it's on Amazon Prime. It's directed by Kevin Pollak, the actor. It's called Misery Loves Comedy, and it's about the comedian's approach and how they deal with their pain and struggles in life and apply it to their stand-up routines. He interviews Jimmy Fallon, Kevin Nealon, Christopher Guest, Janine Garofalo. The list goes on. And it was produced by Tribeca Films, premiered, I think, at Tribeca Film Festival. And it's a very interesting look into how certain comics gather their material and how certain comics got started into this field. If you love comedy, if you love, comedians like Amy Schumer, Larry David, and a list of others who also appear on this, it's definitely worth the watch. Kevin Pollak is actually very funny himself, and it's just a different view of comedy. I definitely recommend it to check it out. I think you would like it too, just because we both love stand-up comedy so much, and it's a cool side to a profession that we kind of see only one side of.
What was one of the most interesting conversations that they had on the or interview that they had?
Actually, one that took me by surprise was actually from Freddie Prinze Jr., which you don't think of him as a stand-up comedian because he's not one, but his father was, and he was talking about crazy stories with his father and Richard Pryor, and this, passing on the legacy from father to son. Very interesting. I definitely love that. And of course, I might be biased here, but he also interviewed Larry David, which I mentioned. And Larry David was just talking about how, in his young 20s in New York City, he had almost every job. He was a taxi driver, a chauffeur, a limo driver, this and that. And his parents were really worried about him, and he had no passion. He didn't know what to do. So they sent him to a psychiatrist, which obviously didn't help. And it was pretty funny to hear that. It's very interesting. And Kevin Pollak dedicated to Robin Williams at the end, which is very touching, very nice, because it kind of gets to the dark side, why, of the pain behind the smile. Definitely recommended.
It sounds very, very similar to Judd Apatow's new book.
Judd Apatow was also in this film.
Yeah, I mean, Judd Apatow has a new book. I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but it's basically a collection of interviews that he had taken since when he was a kid, when he acted like he was a journalist, to modern times interviewing comedians and comics and actors and stuff. So,
and he had a funny anecdote saying he knew right away that in school he wasn't that good at sports, so he was picked last, and he needed he wasn't getting along with the kids and this and that, so he decided to put rocks up his nose and hold it there, and made his arm like a lever, like a gambling slot machine. And so when kids would pull it, rocks would come out of his nose. And he said that did not make him any more popular, but it got people to laugh. And then he was hooked. He was it was a drug for him. And that's how he started calling people up, studios and people, hey, let me interview you. I'm from a radio. And he would show up, not being from a radio, I'm from a newspaper, and he would still get the interview because they felt sorry for him. And so that was pretty cool.
And that's Misery Loves Comedians?
Loves Comedy.
Misery Loves Comedy, which is available on Amazon and Instagram.
Amazon Prime.
I will have to check that out because though I've not watched stand-up in a little bit, I made sure, because road trips are very difficult for me. I am someone that when you put in a car longer than 15 minutes, I tend to fall asleep. Not when I'm behind the wheel, but especially if I'm just a passenger. But trips, it was a turnaround day trip to California that we recently went to. And those are really hard, you're just up all day. And I downloaded a lot of stand-up comedians, like full shows, to my iPod. And I've been listening to a lot of Bill Burr. And I think Bill Burr is one of the greatest, not one of the great, but one of the funniest comedians working right now. He's absolutely hilarious. I love his stuff. But, all right. So beyond that, I've been watching a film. I watched a film called The Gift. And this is a movie that I said came out around the time of Mission Impossible. Actually, the same week as Mission Impossible. It was written and directed by Joel Edgerton and stars Jason Bateman and Rebecca Hall. And it was a movie that I kind of just missed because I was in Ohio. And I figured, Mission Impossible and Vacation came out earlier that week, is going to be really popular. So I'll wait and see it down the line. I started hearing really great things about the movie, and everyone kept telling me to go see it. So I said, okay, I'll go down and see it. But everyone was also talking about how great Mission Impossible was, including Louie. Mm-hmm. We didn't really I don't think we talked about it on this show, but you were a really big fan of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. So when I got back, the first thing I went and saw was Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, which I absolutely loved. Great movie, great fun. Humming the theme song on the way home, had a total blast. But then I said, okay, I still got to go see The Gift. And I thought going into The Gift, I knew exactly what to expect. And I was completely wrong, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I could say that The Gift is one of my favorite movies of the year. Top 3 easy. I mean, it's that great, guys. I mean, it's a really spectacular film. It's well paced, well shot, well directed, well acted. Jason Bateman is great in this movie. Joel Edgerton is great in this movie. Really a lot of talent from him, especially after kind of seeing him after Exodus, Gods and Kings. He wasn't something that I was really excited to kind of see his next work, but I mean, this was really great. A great thriller, a quiet thriller, a movie that doesn't go where you plan it to. And I mean, I tend to be that person who goes, okay, A, B, C, and D. while the movie's on B or C, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a movie that I thought was going one direction and never did. And I respect it for that. Not in the sense that I was able to figure out what's going to happen at the end of the movie, but in the sense that I thought it was going to go in the direction of being a very violent slasher thriller, you know,
kind of like the Boy Next Door with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, you know, just going to go down the generic route of where thrillers become a chase or a slasher movie, and it doesn't. It never does that. It stays smart. It stays thought provoking. It's very creepy. I will say that it reminds me a lot of Nightcrawler. In the sense, not as much as I loved it, because as great as The Gift is, I think Nightcrawler is still a better film and a movie that still haunts my brain to this day. But it is very good like that. It's very enticing. Towards the end of the film, when we're getting to a major reveal, I was literally sitting up on the edge of my seat. I'm not, you know, exaggerating. I was sitting up. I didn't want to lay back. My back was away from the back of the seat. I was sitting up, elbows on my knees, you know, hands clenched, just waiting to figure out what was going on. So if you've not seen The Gift yet, I cannot recommend it enough. I hope you go out and see it. I know it's been a while and it wasn't a huge opening, so I don't know if it's still playing in theaters near you, but I hope it is. And if it is, make sure to go see it. Now, earlier, I said that I was going to give a play-by-play to this movie, so if you do take it amongst yourself to go see The Gift, I would recommend skipping the next 10 minutes of the show or not, because I'm going to spoil it for Louie right now.
Oh, no.
Louie is not particularly annoyed when someone spoils something for him, and we were talking about this for about an hour before we actually started recording, and I told him I'd give him a play-by-play. So this is my interpretation of The Gift. So please, if you plan on seeing this film, and this is going to sound a lot goofier, I'm going to be playing it a lot less spectacular than it is, but this is what it is, and this is how I remember it.
See, the funny thing about this is yeah, I'm definitely going to see The Gift. But in a twisted way, it's not going to live up to the hype, because I'm going to look back on this play-by-play and say, oh my God, that was amazing. I don't know what movie he watched, but this is completely different from what I'm getting right now.
I don't know why it is, but Louie and I sometimes just prefer each other's play-by-play of a movie than seeing the real thing. Like, I remember, what was it, The Broken City? Mm-hmm. Louis gave me the play-by-play to that, and I would have much rather listen to Louis' play-by-play than watch that movie. So, again, here's fair warning, spoiler, and I'm going to pretty much spoil the entire movie, so if you don't want to hear it, fast forward about 10 minutes, and you could get into our review of American Ultra. Okay. Patrick Bateman and Rebecca Hall are married, and they have...
You said Patrick again.
Oh.
You keep doing this.
Patrick Bateman... No,
stop saying Patrick Bateman.
Oh, no, I'm explaining. Patrick Bateman, for all those.
No, but that's his name. That's not his name.
No, I know, but I'm explaining where that is.
Oh, okay.
Patrick Bateman is a character from Easton Ellis's American Psycho, which is a great film starring Christian Bale. And I'm a big fan of that movie. I've read the book. I don't know if big fan of the book would be proper, because that book really is very disturbing. But I've read it. And this movie, to me, just somehow aligns those two characters. So I keep calling him Patrick, because Patrick Bateman is very, very scary in American Psycho, though Jason Bateman is not the bad guy in this movie. So if I say Patrick, I mean Jason. So fair warning.
It's already getting off to a great start.
Rebecca Hall marries Jason Bateman, and they decide to move to sunny California because of job promotion. They why not? You know, let's start fresh. Let's just get a new fresh
California
thing. Love. And I don't. And then, you know, they're looking at a house. It's this beautiful, gorgeous house. So you know there's money involved. Well, there's always money involved, but a lot of money is involved. Very, very like a perfect house to have a thriller in. A lot of huge glass walls. Like, it's actually really annoying. Like, this is one thing that, to me, I don't care who I am or how rich I am, would never have this. So they have the front door, which is huge. And then to the right of the front door, where you usually see like the wall, like a wall, you know, when you walk into someone's front door, there's usually like the outside where you see like, you know, the outside of the house and like the yard and all that stuff. And then there's the other side where you see it's just a big glass wall. So if you walk up to their front door, and you look to your right, you could see in their house.
Yeah.
Their living room, their den, their kitchen. That's really weird. I would never that would be a no-go for me. Absolutely. Not only is that scary, then the people that you don't...
Privacy.
Yeah, it's private. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Don't get carried away now.
For those who were on board, I'm telling you, it's going to get weird. It's just a lot of kind of offbeat thoughts. I'm probably not going to stay in particular order. That's okay. Okay. So they're decorating this new beautiful house. And you kind of are getting the impression that Rebecca Hall, there's something wrong there. And in the very beginning, she's attracted to hearing this child cry. It's in her next door neighbor. The baby's in the car. So you know that there's something there right there. Like, okay, there's baby involved somehow. But she's kind of a little bit quiet. She seems really clueless. There's a lot of shots of her like acting normal. And then when someone leaves the room, she goes back to like staring out into the abyss and just kind of like, you're like, all right, something's, she's holding a lot of things in.
Something's missing.
Anyway, and Jason Bateman is chasing this promotion. That's what we know so far. They're at this shop purchasing lovely decor for their home, and all of a sudden there is a man outside who is peeking in, looking, and walks up to Jason Bateman, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And Jason Bateman does not know who this guy is. He makes that clear, obviously, because he's a good actor.
Just in case.
You didn't know. And he's all talking to this guy, and then he says, "Oh, I'm Gordo." And this is Joel Edgerton. Mm-hmm. I'm Gordo. We went to high school together. And Patrick, "Oh, yeah, okay." And doesn't say much. He goes, "Oh, just wondering how you're doing, And he goes, "I just moved here." And Gordo gives him his name and number and says, "Oh, if maybe you guys want to go out and hang out and catch up, I'd love that." Rebecca Hall comes over and Jason introduces her to Joel. And that's kind of it. That's their only real interaction. Now we cut back and, so at this point, Patrick Bateman is going to work every day. Rebecca Hall is like an interior designer and she's working from online right now. So she's working from home, but she's having issues. And she gets a knock at the door. She gets a knock at the door and she goes out and she finds a wine bottle. And it's a gift from Gordo. And he writes, a letter, and welcoming a house christening, whatever.
Very nice.
Nice gift. Very nice gesture.
Very nice.
Kind of creepy because there's that big mirror there, that wall there. But
okay.
But nonetheless, we don't see him deliver it. Just nice gesture.
He just dropped it off. They wanted to disturb him.
No, just lovely gift.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to the next day. She's working again. Bateman's at work. We actually see him come up in the background, knock at the door. And at this point, I'm like, this is why you don't buy this kind of house. Because regardless if you like the guy or not like the guy, he knows you're home. There's no faking now because he could clearly see you working at the desk right here. Mm-hmm. So she turns around, she goes, he's all waving through the window, and he's kind of like doing like the whole peeking in thing. He has his hand over his eyes, and he's like, "Oh, hey." So you're like, all right, that's kind of weird. He came 2 days in a row. What does he want? Just dropping by without a call or anything like that. Kind of weird. She opens the door. He asks if Bateman's home. She says, "No, he's at work, but he should be home soon. I wanted to call and thank you for the wine." Or no, she goes, didn't he call you and thank you for the wine? And he goes, "No." And she goes, "Oh, maybe he took down the wrong number." Hint, hint. So she comes in and she's like, "Oh, well, I'm just kind of setting up the house." And he helps her set up the TV. He's a handyman. He gives a big tour of the house. She's like, "Let me show you around." Even though you could tell she's kind of creeped. She's not super creeped to the point where she's like, "Oh my God, get out of my house." But you could tell that she is trying to trust him, but she has trust issues.
Yes.
Gives her a grand tour of the house, and then in one room, he discovers I don't know what you call it, but in a box, which is just open, there is the thing that you hang above a crib that rotates.
Yeah.
And she explains that she lost the child. And I actually cannot remember now why. I don't remember if it was, what exactly the circumstances were. So because it wasn't very a big scene of what happened to the baby, but we know the baby did not make it. It lets us know a lot about her. But she gives him a tour, and then she says, "You know what? My husband will be home soon. Why don't you just stay for dinner?" They have dinner, and a lot of this, Joel Edgerton has had a lot to drink, and he's kind of saying a lot of weird things, just his philosophies on life, and the fact that he's so happy for them, that they've made something of themselves, and just the point of niceness where it makes other people feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're someone you don't really remember. He eventually leaves, and they begin to talking. He's just like, yeah, the guy kind of puts me off. He's a little bit weird. And at this time, they're also making other friends, obviously, and they're meeting Bateman's co-working buddies, who all seem to be kind of very stereotyped. These rich people who just laugh at lower class. I mean, just these kind of people that you don't want to be around.
Snobs.
And we are obviously taking Rebecca Hall's point of view, and we feel that we're uncomfortable there. We don't really belong there. We like Gordo at this point. We feel he's a bit forward, but he seems to be a very generous person. There's no wrong intention there. And Bateman's talking about Gordo, making fun of him. And as they get to the house, they're talking about how he knows him. And he goes, well, a lot of kids used to pick on him. I honestly didn't really remember him when I saw him, but I'm remembering he used to be called Gordo the Weirdo. And on the fridge, there's this whiteboard. And he crosses out Gordo's name while he's just talking, and he writes Weirdo. And he's explained that he used to get picked on a lot and blah, blah, blah. She defends him. He's a nice guy. She doesn't really like him talking bad about them or the friends, but she's trying to find her place. Cut to the next day. This is like I said, this could be in wrong order, so mind you. Rebecca Hall is taking a pill. She sneaks a pill in the middle of the night. And we don't know what they really are, but we're assuming it's something. Oh. Okay.
Oh.
She snuck a pill that she actually stole from her neighbor, the one that had the baby, that she's kind of befriending. And we're just kind of assuming she's taking this for anxiety or issues that she has because of the baby, because there's something wrong here. Mm-hmm. But she sneaks the pill in the middle of the night, just baby doesn't know. Next day, Gordo arrives asking if Bateman was there. And this is, granted, this is happening in this succession, but there are a few days in between. It's not like he's there every single day. He comes in the house. She goes, no, he's not here. I just got to really kind of get back to work, but I'm glad to see you. And she goes, well, you want to drink a water or anything? And she's like, yeah, it's in the fridge. Goes over to the fridge and finds the whiteboard. He makes this kind of really sudden face. She knows he sees it. And he goes, okay, well, I got to go. Leaves. She immediately feels awful. She's just not, obviously she's really kind of hurt by this because she actually kind of genuinely likes this guy. And Jace Bateman gets home and he's laughing it off with his friends and they're all talking about it. And then they get an invitation to dinner at Gordo's house, at Joel Edgerton's house. And they're like, oh, well, we'll go. There's going to be another couple there. And Jason Bateman's like, no, I don't want to go. We're going to decline, and I just need to sit and talk to him, tell him that. And he's been a little bit much. And Becca's like, I actually kind of want to go. Like, I don't mind going. They end up going, get to this huge house. And all in between, we're trying to find out what Joel Edgerton does for a living. It's never really clear. We get to this huge, gorgeous house hidden behind like this like huge Hollywood gate. I don't know if you ever watched The Osbournes, but it's like one of those huge wooden gates. They move and they reveal this huge mansion. They get in the house and Joel Edgerton is there and he's welcoming them. He's pouring them wine. And they go, oh, where's the other couple? And they canceled last minute. So a little bit creeped out. He then gets a call. Joel Edgerton. He's kind of yelling. He goes, I have people over, and he hangs up and he goes, okay, guys, stay here. There's something I have to take care of. It's a work thing. I'll be back 5 minutes. No longer than 5 minutes. Literally leaves the house. So he leaves these two people in the house. At this point, Jason Bateman's like, let's leave. Let's go. Beck Hall's like, no. He said, I'll be back in a minute. Said it's a work emergency. Just calm down. So during this, Jason Bateman's like, well, the only reason why the only reason why we're here is because you. And she goes, what do you mean? He goes, because he wants you, he loves you. He's a little nerd and he wants to be with you. And he's just making fun of this guy. And they decide to search the house. Okay, go upstairs. They find a woman's closet, fully, all in there, a beautiful master bedroom. They also find a child's room with 2 beds, I think, in a fish tank. And boom, Joel Edgerton has gotten back home. They rush downstairs and are able to look innocent without being caught or anything. And he goes, sorry about that. I had to go do that. And at this point, Jason Bateman is just being very, very curious and very, very forward, asking, well, where'd you go? What are you doing? What do you do for a living? And he explains, you know what? Okay, you caught me in a lie. My wife has left me and took the kids. And I'm going through a really tough time right now. And that was me meeting her and just giving her money. And she's, she wants to take the kids. And I just didn't want to have that conversation in front of you. Everything makes sense.
Fair enough.
Jason Bateman gets up and says, okay, to his wife, Rebecca Hall, says, go way outside. Me and Joel Edgerton are going to have a talk. She doesn't leave. She actually kind of hangs out by the door so she can hear the conversation. And in the conversation that ensues is pretty much Jason Bateman telling Joel Edgerton that he doesn't want him around. He's coming off a little bit strange. And Jason Bateman catches Rebecca Hall, tells her to go outside again. And we have the conversation outside with Rebecca Hall, just kind of looking in the window, not being able to hear what they're saying, but we could tell that Joel Edgerton's very disappointed. Jason Bateman comes out, and they get to the gate, and it won't open. At this point, Jason Bateman's getting very annoyed and yelling at him to open the gate. Don't be an ass. And we look back at the window that we were watching them fight in, and he just simply pulls out the clicker and clicks it and allows them to leave. But he has this kind of very serious, slow-moving thing about him that we could tell something has changed. In the time in which Gordo discovers the written weirdo on the fridge, he brought them fish for their pond in their front yard. Forgot to mention this. The next day, after a run, Rebecca Hall discovers the fish are all dead. Okay, I'm freaked out. And their dog, their loyal Mr. Bojangles, has gone missing. And so now we call the police. He killed our fish. He has our dog. No proof, nothing to really say. And, the cops are like, well, we'd have to go there and be like, do you have his dog? Because he's accusing you of stealing the dog. And so they're kind of really frustrated at this point. Rebecca Hall wants Doll to be left alone, but she wants her dog back. She doesn't even know if it was really him that took it. The dog could just be missing, new neighborhood, yada, yada. At this point, Rebecca Hall and Jason Bateman are having a lot of issues. And they're kind of being very secretive and pokey at each other. But Rebecca Hall starts to become very fearful. She's home alone a lot. She's hearing things. She has this terrible dream that Gordo broke in the house while she was in the shower. But she's still taking these pills. And one day she gets really, really spooked out. And she begins to panic so much. Like, they mention it throughout the film. Like, what happens when you panic? What happens when you get this way? She goes into the room and she ends up fainting. Right there on the floor. Wakes up, she's on the bed, and she comes out, sees Jason Bateman, and he's like, well, we got to talk. And he reveals that he knows about these pills. And he's like, we know that we said we weren't going to do this anymore. That's why we kind of moved here, to move past all this. And she's like, yeah, well, I feel like you haven't been very honest with me with things going on. And when she says that, we start finding out that she's kind of starting to see what their relationship was like between him and Gordo. And this is where I'm going to kind of get blurry as far as events, but nothing super bad that is out of order. But she starts researching on what the issue is with him and Gordo. And she tells him that she's scared and she's nervous to be alone in the house and he's always working and yada, yada, yada. So she's now determined to find out what the issue is because they get a letter. And the letter says, I hear what you're saying. I'm really, really sorry. And on the back said, P.S. I thought we were going to let bygones be bygones, but I guess we couldn't let this happen. And, he references a gift again. And in the first dinner scene, when he's over there with dinner, he talks about how a gift could seem like a bad thing, but be a good thing. I'll leave it at that. So she feels like because he's not explaining what that means. And she wants to know what he means by bygones be bygones. And so she starts trying to figure out what exactly happened. And you find out that Jason Bateman used to be a bully and used to pick on Gordo a lot. And he was the one that actually gave Gordo the nickname Weirdo, which isn't very clever in the first place.
No, not even that good of a...
Like Gordo the Weirdo, like that doesn't even,
Yeah. Could have done better.
But... Oh, and with this, he actually gives them Apocalypse Now, the movie Apocalypse Now, because it'll sound great in their surround sound system that he helps it up. Because he talks about the flight of Valkyrie in the very beginning with the helicopter and how you'd be able to hear it all over the place. So she starts researching. She asks, she has a baby. Oh, she finds out she's pregnant.
Mm.
At this point, she finds out she's pregnant. Well, it actually is a little bit later, but nonetheless. This is after a lot of the fighting and her finding out that he called her the weirdo. All these conversations I'm kind of just skipping, and I'm taking a really long time, actually. So she starts getting really suspicious. She's starting to have, everything's starting to kind of go back to normal now. She finds out she's pregnant, and then Mr. Bojangles comes back. Safe and sound, no problem, no harm done. So everything's starting to kind of go back to normal. And she's, getting in her groove and getting ready to have this child. And she has a baby shower, and she's talking to Jason Bateman's sister. And she asks, hey, do you remember Gordo the Weirdo? And she goes, well, yeah, I remember him. I wasn't in the same grade with him. They were a lot older than me, but I remember hearing what happened. I mean, the whole town talked about it. Of course, the whole town was talking about it. And he said, what do you mean? Come to find out that Jason Bateman and a friend saved Gordo from being molested in a car by an old man. And he was bullied about being gay and things like that, and it all kind of arose from that. So she takes it upon herself to do some research at his desk, and she ends up finding out that he has ran a background check on Gordo and has this huge file on him. And next to him is another person who he's competing for a job with. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, okay, now I got to track down this friend to see what happened, because that's not really clear. Like, what exactly happened? So she tracks down the friend that was with him when he saved Gordo from the molester and his old best friend. And he's really, really guilt conscious. He's a chiropractor. She goes and actually, goes to see him, but really reveals that that's his wife, and he's not telling her anything. They're going through a really tough time. And he explains to her that there was no molestation. It was all made up. They made it all up, and we're then told that he was taken away from his family. Well, we find out that something happened between him and his dad, and then we find out that he was taken away from his house, and basically his whole life is ruined off of this rumor. So she finally confronts him. Rebecca Hall confronts Jason Bateman. She goes, why didn't you tell me all this? And she throws down the file. She's explaining that he's keeping all this stuff from her. And she goes, that's the difference between me and him. I had issues. I had my problems. Things happened to me, but I got over them. He's a loser. He's a loser. He couldn't get over them. And she goes, that his father tried to burn him alive and kill him because he thought his son was gay. From what I don't know if they don't say that per se, but that whole thing is what makes
implied.
Her, yeah. And, he was sent to an orphan, he was sent away in social service, and all these things. And he goes, it doesn't matter. He should have been able to get over. And he's really defensive at this point. A lot of arguing. They're talking about not being together, just a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, I want you to apologize, and I want this all to end. So, Jason goes, I don't even know where to find him. Oh, I left that out. Sorry. It's not a big deal. So when the cops came over for the dog and the fish, you actually found out that the house they were in did not belong to him. It belonged to his boss. I know it's kind of a big thing. So they're all weirded out, but they don't know where to.
That's amazing.
So he actually used his boss's house for that. So it wasn't his family or anything like that. So he says, I don't know where to find him. She throws down the file. She goes, yes, you do. So Jason Bateman tracks him down at this club where he's like DJing, not literally DJing, but like hosting like a trivia night. And he kind of confronts him and he's like, I came here to apologize. My wife wanted me to apologize because your wife wanted you to apologize. And he's very recluse now. He's not being forward. He's just saying, I gave you your opportunity to apologize. And he goes, what does that mean? And Jason Bateman continues to pummel him because he keeps talking like this in circles. And leaves him. And he just leaves and tells his wife that he apologized and they have made bygones be bygones. Boom, we fast forward to a party once he finds out that he gets this promotion. He's gotten this promotion. The guy that he did research on, or that we assumed research on, got in trouble at his job for something, and he didn't, and he got the promotion. He won it out. So they're having this big old party, and that big glass wall I've been talking about is shattered by a brick. At this point, Bateman is livid, and he believes it's Joel Edgerton. So he jumps out the window. He's looking for this guy, and this guy starts running out. And Jason Bateman tackles him, beats the hell out of him. Come to find out, with all of his boss and all of his employees there, that it was the guy that he beat out for the job promotion. And he goes, I know that you wrote my old company and forged all that paperwork. He's like, you screwed me out of it. You made me lose my job. You screwed me out of everything. I know what you did. I know what you did. They sent me the files. And the boss and everyone's right there now looking at Jason Bateman. And everyone's kind of raising suspicion because we now are basically learning that Jason Bateman screwed this guy out of a job by doing something very malicious and kind of making things up. It's never really clear exactly what he did. So now Jason Bateman is kind of being looked at by everyone as an enemy. Well, not as an enemy, but is not the greatest guy. Mm-hmm. Boom. At that moment, as all this is going down, Rebecca Hall has decided to go into labor at this perfect moment.
I almost forgot she was pregnant.
Yes. So she goes into labor, and she is getting ready to have a child when Patrick Bateman gets a call and finds out that he's been fired because of all this stuff. And then he goes and he sees that he has a baby. He kind of feels really relieved. He goes to see his beautiful wife with his baby. And this is where she tells him that she no longer wants to be his wife. She doesn't want him to have anything to do with it. She goes, so, and this is where, these are like the moments that you kind of don't like Jason Bateman, because instead of kind of fighting for her, before she tells him this news, he's like, I'm going to go home, change, and I'll come back. Do you want anything? And she's like, no, I honestly don't know if I want you to be a part of this baby's life or my life at all. And he goes, well, I mean, I'm obviously improvising here, but he goes, all right, well, I'm going to go still. So he still leaves. Like, he goes, yeah. He leaves and he goes home to find a gift at the door. Cut back to the hospital, and Joel Edgerton, with a black eye and an arm brace, is walking into the hospital. Cut back to the house. Jason Bateman is opening up this gift, which ends up being a huge driver's seat for a baby, or a car seat for a baby. And in them are 4 gifts, labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, in a note. And cut back to the hospital. Joel Edgerton walks in, kind of startles Rebecca Hall, and she's just like, oh my God, what happened to you? Did he do this to you? Cut back to him opening the first gift. Now, here's the problem. Here's the biggest thing, is I don't remember what the first gift was. But obviously, it wasn't that big.
Had to be something.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. It was something small. It was something really small. If I remember, I'll bring it back to you. Let me see if I can look it up, because now it's going to bother me too. I'm sure it's on there somewhere, Wikipedia or something. But we go back and we have this conversation between, Rebecca Hall and Joel Edgerton, and he's kind of telling her, like, things got kind of out of hand, and, being very just kind of making Patrick Bateman look like a total jerk. And at this point, the way he treats his wife, the way he treats his family, and we're just not big fans of him. Okay, hold on one second. Oh, the first. Okay, yeah. So he opens up the first gift, and what is it? It is a house key.
Oh.
And Patrick Bateman immediately runs to his front door and finds out that house key is the key to his house.
That's not good.
Not good. This means that Joel Edgerton has had access for as long as we don't know how long.
So he didn't even have to break the big
didn't
window
have to break the
wall.
window. But it wasn't him in the first place. That's why.
Yes.
Goes to the second gift. It's an audio CD that says "Play Me." Puts it on the speakers, and we hear Flights of Valkyrie, super loud. The scene from Apocalypse Now, which he said would sound amazing on the surround sound system. And then it stops and immediately begins to play all the horrible things that Jason Bateman said about Joel Edgerton while they were at his house, or what they assumed to be his house, making fun of him, calling him an idiot. And at this point, we're kind of cutting back to, him, the conversation with Rebecca Hall, which isn't getting weird. He's not, you're not really suspecting. But he ends up kind of walking out of the room. Third gift. Third gift is a DVD that says "Play Me." Patrick Bateman now kind of just Jason Bateman now totally horrified, puts in this DVD. And we were explained earlier that he has a terrible fear of monkeys. I know it's weird. The video comes up, and it is video that Joel Edgerton has been taking of Rebecca Hall from outside the house. Very creepy. He begins crying. He's very scared. And cuts to the day that Rebecca Hall fainted. And we're seeing this from a point of view of the camera, and we see her laying on the floor, and it pans up to a mirror where we see someone in a plastic, very creepy 3-year-old monkey mask. And he sits on Rebecca Hall and begins touching her. Jason Bateman at this point is infuriated and livid.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera cuts after we see some groping. So Jason Bateman immediately gets up, runs to the hospital, goes in, and is looking for his wife. She's not in the room. Something's gone wrong. He ends up finding her in the nursery, that room where a father or people would be able to look through a glass window and see their child. And Rebecca Hall is in there, and she is holding her baby. And she just kind of turns away from him, and they shut the window on him. Then sees Gordo leaving the hospital, runs after him, can't catch him. And then all of a sudden gets a call. And in this great final conversation, he explains to Jason Bateman that he didn't do it. Or maybe he did. And what he means by that is obviously raping Rebecca Hall and potentially being the father to her child. And he goes on to explain, well, it could just be a story that I made up. Something that I could have just fabricated that would essentially ruin your life. And, he kind of leaves him with some other smart words, hangs up, and we see Joel Edgerton walk off, pulling the sling off of his arm, as he was faking it. And Patrick Bateman is kind of crumbling to the floor, realizing that no matter what, I mean, and this is interpretation, this is obviously said, but no matter what, no matter if it's true or not, his life is ruined. Either A, he has to, that child is not his, and he has to tell his wife that she was raped, and possibly ruin her life, send her absolutely insane, and make that baby be resented. Or, regardless, if they do stay together, that baby will always remind him of that man and of that experience and the fact, knowing that it might never be his child in the first place. And that is the gift.
And credits.
Credits.
I just like how he needed the sling to walk into the hospital.
Yeah. Well, no, he did it to make her think that he
beat him up.
Yeah. I love it because they don't tell you. Yeah. I loved it that they were smart enough not to show him. And personally, I don't think he did, but it doesn't matter because that seed is implanted, and I think that was kind of what I really enjoyed about the movie. There was no murder, no slasher. It was good, man.
Did he or didn't he?
I don't think he did. It's really out of his character too. But then again, when you saw him kind of climb on top of her and grope her a little bit, you're like, oh man, this is the kind of guy that I was defending at one point, you know?
Yeah.
And they shows him on the bed, and that's where she wakes up. Because that was a real cliff part of the movie. You're like, wait, she fell on the floor, and she had spilled Gatorade, but we were wondering. But when we see Patrick Bateman and he talks about her being passed out, we assumed he just moved her and cleaned up the mess. But it was a really smart connection, really smart, and the monkey mask makes it really creepy.
It always has to be some exotic mask.
Well, it's not it wasn't a gorilla rubber mask. It was imagine that toy monkey that bangs the cymbals together. That of a cheap plastic 99-cent store mask. So it made it really creepy. But very, very effective. Yeah.
And Joe Edgerton wrote and directed this.
Yes, wrote and directed it.
You loved it.
I loved it. And it was great. It was smartly executed. If you did not see the movie and you sat through that, trust me, it's a lot better when it's executed by him, not me. But it was very, very good. I just wanted to share that with Louie. Now we are going to quickly review American Ultra. Before we go tonight. So me and Louie are going to wrap this up right now. But Louie's going to play... we're going to play Q&A, and Louie's going to ask me about that movie. American Ultra is a movie that stars Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart and tells the story of a young stoner who discovers that people want him dead and then realizes that he has abilities that he never knew he had. And he is dealing with this all while he is dealing with simple things like anxiety and things that take on normal people, and the nervousness he has to propose to his girlfriend, Kristen Stewart. The movie was a comedy, kind of like a Bourne movie. So, Louie, go ahead and ask these questions so we can review this and let these people go home or go to bed or turn us off. Or they can listen to us longer. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, any of the above will do. So American Ultra presents itself very much like Pineapple Express meets the Bourne trilogy.
Yes.
Which you have alluded to. How was the execution? Is it more like a stoner flick? Did it actually meet the expectations of the trailers? Because in the trailers, it kind of looks like they do balance the stoner comedy and the fighting pretty well. Is it pretty even, or is it more of a comedy with some fight scenes thrown throughout?
Well, here, I was expecting Pineapple Express. There's violence in Pineapple Express, and there's also a lot of comedy. And it was actually very different. Personally, as a comedy, I feel like this movie fails. I didn't laugh very much, if at all. I didn't think there was things that were really funny. And as far as an action movie, this movie's not nice, funny comedy action. I mean, it's more along the lines of Kick-Ass, but even that is kind of funny, but it is very in your face. There's a lot of dark things that happen in this movie as far as being a comedy. But it's not that effective of an action movie either. However, there's one great action sequence at the very end, and Jesse Eisenberg is total BA, and they're in this department store. But to me, the movie doesn't work in how it was given to me. It was one of those situations where I fell in love with the characters. And I was so surprised because, I'm not the biggest Kristen Stewart fan. I'm not anti-Kristen Stewart like many. Just because she wanted to take a role in a very, very successful franchise. Yeah. But these two have worked together before in a movie called Adventureland, which I actually did enjoy. And Jesse Eisenberg is good. I loved him in The Social Network. He hasn't done anything really that great to kind of stand out since. But it was a movie that I just had this expectation, and I thought I knew I was similar to The Gift, actually, and I thought I knew what I was going to get, and it was the complete difference. The movie opens up where Jesse Eisenberg is trying to take his girlfriend to Hawaii to propose to her, and he can't because he has anxiety and he can't leave this city. And we're learning about these characters and their relationship, and oddly enough, in this the stoner comedy, I'm finding these characters who I actually really care about and I sympathize with. I really, really feel bad for Jesse Eisenberg. He doesn't play this cocky, attitude-ridden kid who knows everything. He actually is a very humble person, someone who definitely wants to do good, and he has heart, and I want to see him succeed and be with his girlfriend. And then all the other stuff comes. And it's not bad. It's not like the movie gets worse as that happens. Because it's really smart in that they make their relationship and the great chemistry together. Kristen Stewart is really good in this movie too. That the scenes that they have in between all of the spy stuff and all of the, I have these powers to kill people with a spoon, and all these people are brutally murdered. They have this kind of relationship, and they're back and forth, and they're trying to figure it out. And that's what really worked for me. So I was like, I would much rather have watched this movie just about them trying to find their own and see what's going on, rather than the whole spy thing, because I really like these characters, and that's not something you can walk away from saying in this kind of movie. You go in it for the jokes, you go in for the action, you don't go in for a character piece, and that's how it ended up working for me. I really enjoyed watching them together. I loved their scenes together. I loved the way they interacted with one another, and I thought they did really solid performances. Like I said, I didn't think it was super funny. I also found myself not laughing at certain things where the audience did, and I think that was maybe a major disconnect, because their relationship is kind of tragic. And, I think that the audience, at midnight, who went and saw a stoner movie, wasn't really interested in looking at this movie as a passionate love story, but it's definitely there. And I mean, it's not anything super outstanding, but I was definitely going in accepting something forgettable, but instead I got this interesting glimpse of like what these two actors are capable of. And I'm not saying Jesse Eisenberg hasn't proven to the world that he could do great performances, but I mean, it was just a different side of him. And, not many actors can play the humble character. Well, in his defense, it might not have been his fault because the script was awful, but Miles Teller tries to play the humble nerd in Fantastic Four, and he does an awful job. He can't pull it off. He's the best playing that cocky kid, similar to Jesse Eisenberg, who speaks his mind, likes to throw out witty whips at people. But he's so humble in this movie and so kind. You're just like, I feel for this guy. And Kristen Stewart and his relationship. Bill Pullman has a cameo that's essentially could have been played by anybody. It wouldn't have really mattered.
How was John Leguizamo?
He was good. But I mean, he was a role that you'd kind of want in that kind of comedy, the outrageous friend. And not, like I said, that wasn't what I was interested in. I mean, my focus, there's a lot of things that I can't even really remember from the movie because it's so over the place. But I mean, as far as that part of the movie, it's exactly what you expect. I mean, he finds out that he has these powers. He finds out he's basically this super agent that they created, and they want him terminated. And it's him discovering these powers and stopping them. But it's their interaction that really, really attracted me to this movie. So, I mean, if you're going for a stoner comedy / action movie, I don't know if this is the right movie for you. But if you're going because you enjoy the actors, then I would say this is a great movie for you because they really do deliver here. Unfortunately, it's just not in the best movie. And I know it's such a kind of an odd criticism because, it's like there's a whole other movie that I'm not talking about here. I mean, I'm talking about maybe 1/4 of a movie, but it is the most effective part, and the rest of the movie I didn't really care about. I mean, it's okay. It's all right. It's not the worst thing I've seen all year. It's not a movie I'd pay to see again. But those performances were enough for me to be like, I really like these characters, and I really enjoyed spending the time with them. And it goes in really kind of generic places, but it's how they bring that relationship to life that really makes it memorable. So, if you want to read my full, do you have any other questions?
No, that pretty much sum it up.
Yeah,
actually,
if you want to read my full review, you can go to chasingcinema.com/American Ultra, and you can watch all of our videos and stuff, including this podcast, on youtube.com/chasingcinema. And if you're not an iTunes or a YouTube person, you can always go to iTunes and hit the subscribe button. So each week it's automatically downloaded to your Apple, iPod, iPad, iPhone, or whatever device you're listening to on. Or like I said, YouTube is the place you can listen to these as well. Louie, I thank you for taking your time out of your day to come back and hang out with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jacob Tiranno. I'm joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louie Coruzzolo.
And please continue chasing cinema.